Hey everyone, Eddie Wilson here with Think Realty and the American Association of Private Lenders. We're so excited to continue the series on the voices of reason. As many of us are experiencing some pretty crazy, difficult times right now, whether it's trying to manage a business from afar or managing a remote workplace or trying to find capital for deals, whatever it is that you're facing, we're trying to bring you relevant content to what issues you are facing. And so the last time we talked a lot about the marketplace, kind of predicting where things were going, as difficult as that may be. Today, we've chose to really talk more about the operations of your business and some great tips and presenters that we know will be a huge benefit to you. We'll get started here in just a second, but I want to again just thank you so much, and I want to let you know that from Think Realty and the American Association of Private Lenders, our hearts and our minds go out to all those that are struggling during this time. We've had so many conversations with people that are on either side of the fence, some that are just poised and ready for the opportunity that's going to come. Maybe they missed the opportunity in the last recession and now are poised and excited and ready. And then those that are struggling to hang on, struggling to manage their businesses, waiting on SBA loans, trying to figure out what's next, how to find the capital to continue. And so we want to be very cognizant of either place, giving you great content to feed whichever side of that fence that you're on. And just let you know that we're here for you. And if there's ever anything that we can do at the American Association of Private Lenders or Think Realty, we want to be there to help you out. So today we're going to be talking about managing your new remote work team. We've asked three very stellar panelists to be a part of this. And so I don't want to take any more of their time. I want to get right into their content. So the first person we have is Carrie Cook. She's the president of Ignite Funding. Carrie has been an awesome voice and supporter of both Think Realty and the American Association of Private Lenders. We're excited to have her on today. So Carrie, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. The Petri dish. Boy, I think this resonates to all of us right now. And I wanted to just talk to you guys briefly about kind of the science of the human interaction that we're facing right now and kind of what I perceive as to what we can expect for the future from the perspective of a lender. So we're all witnessing this really massive behavioral change that's going on. And the process of this behavioral change has ultimately affecting many things. Remember that this is a moment in time. So this too will pass. And how we handle this situation is really going to be something that we look back to and see what that perspective was and how we handled the situation and how we can handle it better in the future with our employees, borrowers, and investors. But the one common thread in all of this, I think we would all agree, is that we're all people. And we're going through this crisis right alongside each other. And the way that we react is influencing the reaction that we're getting. And we see it on the media. We're seeing what's happening, right? As soon as they said there might be 200,000 deaths, everybody was completely fine with staying home. Now that there's only been 20, people are saying, when are we going to get back to work, right? So every action, has a reaction. So no, I started this with a Petri dish, and you didn't see, your standard presentation. And no, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a behavioral therapist, but there's one thing that I'm really good at, and that's people. And the one thing that I know very well now from sitting here in this president's chair is that I am a damn good virtual assistant. And I have had to take on roles, as many of you have, that are not normally what's assigned to us. How do we maintain that control over crisis to set the stage for the success now and in the future? I'm going to go over a couple of things that I have found very important, and hopefully you will as well, or maybe things that you've learned from. If you did not have a contingency plan a month ago, I guarantee you that you have one now. And that transition from being at work and your everyday easy tasks, you could just walk over to somebody else, that's changed a lot. And when we transitioned from being at the office to being home, that transition process, if it's not handled in a calm and orderly fashion, you're really setting the stage for either mad chaos or a calm environment of expectations that things aren't going to be perfect, right? The technology isn't always going to work. Your internet may be slower because everybody's at home. But that contingency plan now that you have, if you didn't have one, trust me, if you ever have to do that again, you will be ready next time. If you were not an active supervisor or manager a month ago, you are now. And in fact, meetings, they went from being a burden to being something that many of us are looking forward to every single day. Crazy. I can't even believe I'm saying that. We all love meetings. If you were a perfectionist a month ago, you have transitioned to it's just good enough. And I think we would all agree there. I'm sitting here right now, not in a suit. This is probably the first time I've ever given a presentation not being in a suit. And you know what? It's become acceptable right now. The dog's barking in the background. It's become acceptable. Toddlers screaming. It's become acceptable. We can't be perfect right now. And if you don't believe that every action has a reaction, you definitely do now. So let's talk about my actions and the reactions that I've kind of set as a philosophy, and that is stay calm and invest on. And that is something that I have drilled down from my employees to my investors as well as my borrowers during this time. But I had to set that tone. So let's talk about the reality check on the expectations. We've all set our goals for 2020, and I'm sure they're not as clear as they used to be. And so what I've had to do is I've had to reset that to not be a monthly goal or a weekly goal. It is a daily goal right now. The motivation and the rallying that I had to do for my managers then drilled down into my employees, which ultimately are going to rally those investors. It is a daily goal that we set. Every single day we have a goal, whether it's a small goal or a big goal. It's a goal that we unilaterally are working towards as a team. And let me tell you, now is not the time for cheesy marketing, false hope, or milestone press releases. That whole stay calm and invest on, if we maintain a business as usual without all that extra stuff, that's what people are going to come to appreciate and remember. I guarantee you that these milestone press releases or this false hope communication is not going to bode well for companies out there that I see doing it. Pull back on that right now. Make sure your communication is just real facts, real information, no promises. That's how you set the expectation and the tone across the board. So let's talk about the mental health of employees, because in my opinion, that's what matters most. If you can get your employees to engage and stay calm and talk through what's going on, it's hugely instrumental. And maintaining your culture that they become accustomed to in the office, you kind of have to put that culture on steroids. And that's exactly what I've done. We have a mentality here of a work hard, play hard. And there's a lot of things you're seeing on the screen right now. Week one, it was all about getting that inspirational message out to employees. Then we were able to welcome a new baby to our family, which was very exciting and scary at the same time. We hit milestone goals. Believe it or not, we funded $25 million in March. And guess what we're not able to do? Talk about it. But amongst ourselves, it was a party. Then we started to think about how are we going to engage employees like we're accustomed to in the office. We started with guessing whose virtual office it is. You want to talk about a lot of fun. Most of us haven't been to other employees' homes. And so it really was a guessing game, but a lot of fun. In week 2, it was all about embracing that inner, sorry if I'm not allowed to say this, badass challenge. It was figuring out what we can do to overcome the obstacles that we were facing. Then, of course, you have the fairy god boss, you know, your hump day Q&A challenge. Let's find out who hasn't taken a shower yet and inspire them to. Who's sitting in their pajamas, and tell them to get out of their pajamas because it'll make them feel better. And then you got to cap it off with a COVID-19 wrap-a-thon, right? No better way to get employees engaged and keeping them healthy. So not to shed light on the situation, but realize that we all have to do our part. And then, you know, it's an honor to be asked to do presentations like this or write articles about the success of transitioning a virtual environment. We're very, very proud of the fact that we were able to do that with the governor saying, you've got 6 hours until we shut down Las Vegas. We were ready, we were prepared, we were calm about it, and within that 6-hour period, we were ready to go. So we're proud to be writing about that. And then obviously you've got Creature Comfort Day. Creature Comfort Day is all about asking employees what they miss most about the office and then delivering that to them, to their homes. We literally delivered whatever they missed most. If it was their chair, their second monitor, their mouse, whatever it was, we made it happen for them. And we put it on their doorstep, and then I text them to let them know that it was Creature Comfort Day. And then we got to try out Zoom. How fun is this, right? We get to see each other. There was nothing better than seeing my employees' faces. I have a hashtag right now, and it's Miss My Employees, because I miss them. I'm the only one in the office. They are all at home. Then we had to bring back sports. Bringing back sports to the men in our office. And what we did there is we had a wastebasket challenge with all the women. The men got together, got their brackets, and they were able to do their own internal sports setting, and we had a great time with it. Did with Zoom meetings, a lot of fun. Moving into week 4, we had an employee drive-through trunk lunch. I had my employees show up here in the parking lot. They popped their trunks. We waved. We took pictures. It was great to see them. And now we're moving on to what the men are not enjoying as much is the Mr. Congeniality contest. And you know, it's a lot of fun. Every day we get on the Zoom, we're having a lot of fun with it. I'm not going to tell you what's to come, but this is our culture. This is how we get through our day. This is how we keep the mental health of our employees. Again, in my opinion, what matters most, the most important is the employees. Because what comes after the employees and their reaction to what we're doing keeps their mental health well, and they bring that to our investors. Now, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing next because they might be watching. I don't want anybody to know. But if anybody has, you know, any ideas or wants to know how we do this, please let me know. Please ask. Please email me. I'm willing to share any of these ideas with you because doing things like that really embraces, you know, who we are as people right now and does help for the mental health side of things. So now how do we maintain that rapport with our borrowers? We're lenders. And so, you know, I can't not address this fact. Real estate development does not stop because of Corona, right? In fact, they have deemed it an essential business. You know, we are on the West Coast, and on the West Coast, it really has been a business as usual as it pertains to real estate. You know, just like in 2019 or 2009, 10, 11, you know, when the banks weren't lending, private lenders were, and we are now. And we've seen some reaction from the banks where they're not, how do I say this nicely? They're pulling back at a time when, you know, the borrowers are saying, why now? You know, I have a draw coming on a half-built house and you've decided that you're not going to provide me that draw. You know, those banking relationships that borrowers have established when they move away from private lenders, those borrowers are now saying, wait a second, I can't get what I need out of my banking relationship. So so now they're coming back to us saying, can you help us out? And we have been able to help them out. So now they're looking at that relationship a little bit differently now. And your pre and post COVID-19 underwriting standards, they really shouldn't have changed that drastically. And ours haven't changed that drastically. And the only reason I say that is because if you were doing the proper risk mitigation previously, those rules still apply today. Remember, this is a moment in time. This is a moment in time. Be there for your borrowers because they will be there for you. And if this is the first time that you decided to have regular conversations with your borrowers, shame on you. Because I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of phone calls from people that I haven't heard from in years. Years. And they're deciding to call me now. And it's like, why now? Why now? Why not always? So if you haven't been regularly speaking with your borrowers, good luck, good luck getting them to rally around you. My opinion is that success comes when you set the expectations with your borrowers. When others are not doing it, when the banks are letting them down, you're there for them. So think about who they consider first when it comes time to making payments. Well, I can tell you at Ignite Funding, all of our payments came in on our portfolio, every single one of them, because we enact all of these things all the time, prior to this epidemic, and we'll do it after. So when we pick up the phone and call our borrowers right now, it's as business as usual for us. Maintaining that rapport is so important. So if you're starting that now, don't stop after this. Keep going with it. Now, how do you maintain that rapport with your investors? Maintaining the rapport with your investors and keeping the mental health of your investors, like I said, starts with your employees. Then it's the reaction your borrowers have. Your borrowers are making the interest payments. When the stock market tumbles, collateralized real estate investments is very, very popular. And if we act and react properly and always and consistently, the whole business as usual can work, but you have to align your actionable initiatives with your employees that in turn are going to put that down onto your investors. And then the company as a whole needs to make sure that those borrowers are taken care of now and in the future. This is my opinion on mental health. This is my way of keeping the ship afloat, keeping business as usual and the stay calm, invest on. Thank you very much. I have about 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be willing to take those now.
Thanks so much, Carrie. I appreciate it. Again, if you have questions for Carrie in the questions box, go ahead and ask them there. And then I believe that the audio issue has been fixed, but I think that's the only question we have so far. Awesome. If they don't have a question, I have a question for you, Carrie. I think, is obviously you gave us a lot of great content for creating culture, having fun with our employees, keeping things positive, moving forward. Did you appoint someone on your team to try to spearhead this, or is this, a byproduct of just leadership and something that you're trying to do? How did you kind of stoke that fire and come up with all those great ideas?
Well, you're talking to her. I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to, I expect a lot out of my employees, and they know it. When I talk about that perfectionist thing, that's kind of what I ooze. I want everybody to be better than they think they are. And I push my employees with change all the time. And so when we went to transitioning from being in the office to being home, I had so many employees say, Carrie, can I just please come in? I know that this is an order. I know that I'm taking on risk, but I really, that human interaction is so important to me because of how we engage. Mm-hmm. So when we went virtual, I think they knew to expect change, to expect something different, to expect more out of me. And so I literally come up with these ideas. I do work with my human resources department because, sometimes I may go a little off color sometimes and she needs to pull me back in. And I also talk with my marketing department about it because I need their help in making sure that we're presenting our best foot forward. Even though we're virtual, I'm still sending stuff over to my designers for my invites to my employees. I want to keep it so that they realize that good isn't good enough. Be great. Always be great. It doesn't matter what the situation or what we're dealing with. Go over the top. Do more than you think you can. And so that's kind of my philosophy. So yeah, I'm crazy when it comes to stuff like that and finding these ideas. The waste basket challenge, that was something that was online. I do a little research, find a few, nuggets out there and say, okay, how can I implement this on a virtual, in a virtual scenario? And we just make it happen.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate your creativity. It stoked a lot of thoughts, for me and for all the staff that I have that's, working remotely today. That's awesome. I appreciate it. And if you have continuing questions for Carrie, feel free to write them in. Carrie, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your leadership in the industry. And I know that Linda has been to your office and just raves about your company culture and raves about your office, and is really excited about what you've done there. And I just appreciate everything you've done for both of our organizations.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for incorporating me on this presentation.
Absolutely. So we're going to go to Austin McCurdy. Austin McCurdy is a friend of mine, but also works for a business that I have a small ownership stake in, Sharper Business Solutions. They are a service provider for helping businesses increase their operational efficiency. They are a teacher of EOS and traction. And then Gary Harper, who is the majority owner of Sharper Business Solutions, is also one of the Think Realty resident experts. So Austin is always training and helping people with human resources and with recruiting and with tools such as Predictive Index and others. And he did a fantastic presentation a few weeks ago on helping people manage a remote workforce. And so we asked him to come on here and maybe take it down in size, but we've asked him to do the same presentation for you. I think it'll be very, very helpful for you if you're managing people from afar. And he's just got a list of best practices and a lot of great ideas. So Austin, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for having me and for the AAPL and Think Realty team for putting this together. Appreciate it. And looking forward to the next 20 minutes. And I've started my timer so I don't go over, so we keep this thing within time here. So a little bit about me. My name is Austin McCurdy. I'm the COO at Sharper Business Solutions. Also, I'm the owner of Sharper Personnel. We work with Predictive Index, like Eddie mentioned. There's my email address. If you have any questions, feel free to email me as well directly. A little bit about me. Graduated from college, taught high school math for about 10 years, was a principal the last few years there. So all of you that are homeschooling right now, we homeschool all 4 of our children. So I do know what you're going through. It's actually every day of my life for me is working from home and homeschooling my kids. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out, or just want to vent a little bit, I gotcha. If you don't know how to do math, you can email me a math question as well. Went from there and became a Papa John's multi-unit franchisee, owned 8 restaurants in 3 different states, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan at the University of Michigan, which is a competitor of Ohio State University. So we get that in there. So did a lot of.
I'm gonna mute my thing real quick and just put it out there that you should probably get off the webinar now. If you are a listener of Think Realty and AAPL, he just dogged my alma mater, and so you feel free to give Austin as much crap as you want later on. Thank you. Back out.
No problem. Thanks for that interjection there. So anyway, I've been managing a remote workforce for a very long time now. I had a couple hundred employees. I was in 3 different states, were hours from me. So did a lot of remote managing for a long time now. So a couple of things I'm going to touch on. Hopefully what you'll learn as we get out of this webinar here with me is that the data shows that remote workers can outperform workers in an office setting. We're also going to work on changing your mindset on remote work, the importance of remote work and scaling your business, and then some tips on how to manage those remote workers. So give you a little bit of data. I would say I like math, I like data. I want to see proof of what we're talking about. So just to kind of start here, prior to the virus and the current situation we're in, 43% of all U.S. employees actually worked off-site at least part of the time. So not sure if y'all realize that or not, but we already were at 43%. Now, I know what everybody's thinking immediately is, yes, working from home today, no pants. So, that's immediately what we think our employees think. we need to visualize our employees working from home. Is this what they're doing? They're laying in bed with their computer next to them, just waiting for me to call them or to see that they're doing work, right? Or we see this. We see they're at home, sitting in their kitchen, trying to wrangle their children while they're trying to work. Well, a study was done over a 2-year period by Stanford University, and what they found astonished them. They actually did this study, was that working from home actually boosted productivity, as opposed to bringing it down, actually brought it up to the tune of 13%. Worker performance increased by 13% in 9 months due to increased efficiency, fewer breaks, fewer days off, fewer sick days. So as opposed to actually it going down, and the study they did was with a company that was in a very high rent district and wanted to see if they expected a loss of productivity and were willing to take a certain amount of lost productivity if it would save them on the rent of adding additional space. So they were willing to take it, and instead they found it actually went up. This increased productivity is equivalent to an extra day per person per week, is what they found that they got out of their employees by allowing them to work at home. I kind of go through all that data to speak to that productivity does not have to slip in a work at home environment. And I think going into this thing, having the right mindset, we all go into it. I talked to a lot of our clients who went into this environment thinking, great, I have to lose productivity. I remember speaking to literally the day before the shutdown happened in California. I was speaking to a client, and he literally looked at me and said, well, we all know that they're not going to work as well from home as they do in the office. And that's immediately the mindset that everybody has. So I enjoy going through these numbers and looking at them to change the mindset that we don't have to deal with that. Can it happen? Yes, but it doesn't have to. What they also found was that worker attrition decreased by 50% due to improved worker satisfaction. They actually lost 50% fewer employees who were working at home as they did workers in the office during this study. Some other studies that have been done on this: 51% of remote employees choose to telecommunicate for a better work-life balance. So when we stop and say, okay, why do employees want to work from home? What is their motivation? Over half of them have said, because I want a better work-life balance. And we all know, we hear about this all the time right now in all kinds of different studies in workplace about that work-life balance. And that's what employees are getting out of that. Now, as the employer, what benefit do we see from having remote employees? Well, a couple of things. First off, remote employees hire employees 33% faster than other businesses, per an Owl Labs and Tiny Paul's State of Remote Work back in 2017. 33% faster than what you currently hire. You can bring on employees remotely. Companies with telecommunication options experience 25% less employee turnover, also by the same study. So this one company, they experience upwards of 50% less turnover. This study was 25. Whether it's 25 or whether it's 50, those are big numbers when we start talking about employee turnover. And we all know that employee turnover is an extremely high cost. There's a lot of different numbers out there, but no matter how you slice it, it's a really high cost. So we can cut that down by 25%, a lot of savings into our business. When this study was done in 2020, State of Remote Work, they asked them, they asked remote workers, would you like to work remotely at least some of the time for the rest of your career? 98% of those people that responded said, yes, I would like to work remotely for the rest of my career, at least some of the time. Now, at the same time, there's some struggles with that. And I think that it would be unfair for us not to expect that there are struggles, and analyzing those. The rest of what I'm going to talk about is, here's what work at home employees struggle with, and here's some tips on how you can help them. First off, 20% of the people that responded to this survey said that they were lacking collaboration opportunities and socialize. They didn't get those opportunities. Another 20% said loneliness, the same amount. Lonely, they don't get to collaborate. Another 18%, right up there with that 20, was not being able to turn off when they're at home. Essentially, they're working all day. So instead of it being a 9 to 5 and go home, they now are struggling with that because they're not able to turn off working from home. So let's talk a little bit about that. First off, we've got to combat this loneliness. We've got to combat these collaboration opportunities. Our employees are looking for that. So first tip here is treat remote employees as local. Remember, you're not seeing them in the hall. You're not having lunch with them. You're not meeting with them in your office. Those social opportunities throughout the day that you have to interact with your employees aren't happening, right? They're working remotely. You're working remotely. You're not seeing those. We've got to make sure that we're responding quicker to them. We got to make sure that when they send us an email, we respond right away. When they call us, we answer the phone. Under a normal office setting, if they're calling us from down the hall, we may call them back later. We may not respond to an email right away. We know we're going to run into them in the hallway. Make sure that when they reach out to you, that you're responding to them as quickly as possible and letting them know that you're engaged. Make sure you're having Zoom calls with them. As we talked about it, the other presenter talked about this, right? We don't know how engaged they are, right? We're on the phone with them. Are they holding a baby? Are they doing different things on their phone with us? Have Zoom calls, not only so you see they're engaged, but more importantly, that they can tell that you're engaged with them, that you're paying attention to them, that you're giving them the time that they need for those collaboration, social opportunities, okay? Make sure, number two, we set some clear expectations. We're at home. You know, everyone has a different definition of what doing something quickly or well means, okay? What Eddie was on the call, what is quickly done to Eddie isn't necessarily what quickly done is to me. So make sure that we're setting those expectations of, hey, we need this done this quick. Hey, we need you sitting in your desk from 9 to 5 if that's what your expectation is. You know, we're expecting emails responded to in an hour. We're expecting text responded to in 15 minutes. Make sure some of those things that you didn't set before, that you set those expectations now, and that they're very, very clear with those. If you haven't done that, sit down, draw those out, email those out to your team. Number three, trust your team. One of the biggest reasons why we don't embrace remote work is because we don't believe that we can complete work at the same level that our employees can from the office. And I kind of started off this talk talking about that, giving you numbers, giving you data, giving you studies that have shown that it is possible for them to be as productive or even more so working from home. But a lot of times we as the managers don't believe that, right? So because we don't believe that, we don't trust that our team can get it done. So make sure that we're doing that. To combat this belief, set those guidelines. Like I talked about kind of back to the previous one. Set guidelines of what your expectations are and hold them to it. Accountability is a big piece right now when people are working from home. But first off, really embrace and believe that they can get it done, that they can be as productive working from home as they are from the office. Number four, stay focused on goals, not in activities. I'll tell you this, from when I managed my stores and they were remotely, some of them were as much as 4 hours away from me. I didn't focus on what they were doing that day, that minute, that hour. I focused on goals. Did we create this much sales today? Did we do this much marketing today? So don't worry as much about what is being done. Instead, concentrate on what is being accomplished. Are they accomplishing things? I actually went ahead in my slide incorporated a spreadsheet from back. These were my 5 stores in the Chicago market. And when I'd be up in the Michigan market, I would pull this report every day and I would look at this report. As you can see, it's color coded, and I would stop and I would look and I would say, okay, when I call this manager, what do I need to call them about? I'm not calling to ask them, you know, hey, are you scrubbing the floor right now? Are you doing this right now? Are you doing that right now? I stopped and looked and I said, okay, what were your sales? How did they compare to last year? How did we do from a ticket average standpoint? How did we do from a customer service standpoint? And so when I called, my conversations were geared towards goals, not necessarily tasks that they were doing. It was, well, hey guys, we didn't hit this goal. What can we do to improve this goal? What can you do today? So if we are meeting our goals, then great. If not, we need to investigate the situation further. So if your teams are meeting the goals you set, maybe you need to reevaluate the goal. Maybe we need to move the goal up a little more. Maybe it's not a high enough goal. But if they're meeting the goals that we expect out of them, great. There's no need for us to be calling them and micromanaging and finding out what they're doing if they're hitting our goals. If not, then yes, we need to dig in. We need to investigate further and see what's going on. It's not all about the accomplishment. I'm sorry, give me 1 second here. So number 5, establish close bonds and help and support frequently. Make sure that we are investing in the relationship with our employees. More so than ever before, if you've not taken time to build a relationship with your employees, now is the time we have to do that. I notice right now, when I call my employees right now, when they answer, they don't want to talk for 5 minutes. They want to talk for 15 minutes. And I'm stopping right now and I'm asking questions. I have one of my employees who both of her sons are home from college right now. So they came home and they don't have jobs and they're sitting in the house all day. So when I call, I talk to her about what her sons are doing, you know, and she's got them outside. They both are on soccer scholarships, so she has them outside playing soccer with them. She encouraged them to go look for jobs right now in the areas that are hiring. So I'm building that relationship right now. I'm asking about her family. I'm asking about her days going. She enjoys eating out. Right now she can't, so she's having to cook a lot. So we're talking about recipes and different things we're making for our families and things like that. I'm taking that time right now to invest in the relationship because it's going to pay off for me. And then kind of wrap things up here, I talked about scaling. If you're going to scale, you must learn how to manage remote employees. If you're going to grow your company, you're more than likely going to go into different locations. You're going to get to a point where you don't know all your employees. You're going to be in different cities, different states. If you're going to scale your company and grow, you have to learn how to manage remote employees. So really, at the end of the day, the question isn't if you are going to manage remote workers, but when are you going to manage remote workers? A lot of us right now are being forced into managing remote teams. Use this opportunity to learn, to grow, to gain experience on managing so that when the opportunity comes to scale your business, you already know how to do that. You already know how to grow, how to scale, and how to manage remote workers. So, Eddie, that's the end of my presentation there.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Let's see here. We've got a couple of quick questions for you. The first question I see is, do you put your expectation in writing for your remote employees? Is it something you just speak to them, or is it something that you want to put in writing?
Yeah, definitely in writing. I have a friend of mine who works for an extremely large supply company, nationwide. I think they're actually international. And they sent them all home with their computers to work remotely. And he was showing it to me. They actually sent them with a manual that laid out exactly what the expectations were for them, what hours they expected them to leave the office, how many breaks they were to take. It was a very detailed expectation list of what's expected. So yeah, definitely in writing. I would enforce it orally. I mean, I would reinforce it orally, but I would make sure to put it in writing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, in the end, I mean, it does come down to the culture that you're building at your business. You know, Carrie gave us a very different, you know, culture, maybe not quite. It would be interesting to hear, and I don't know if Carrie, if you're still on, but is that kind of the opposite of your culture? You know, do you not want to put down everything in writing, or do you kind of take that same approach? She might have jumped off. But anyways, I could imagine that, you know, a lot of the people that are managing their business remotely, it needs to be an extension of how their employees are already acting. And so Lee asked that question. And if you are that, you know, regimented with your traditional employee in the workplace, then you probably should just carry that same regiment, that same ethos and thought out in how you manage your people. But always put it in writing, because at least you have a document to go back to and reference. Also,
I think too with that, we're talking about employees who are going from working in an office setting right now to working remotely, and there's got to be a little bit more structure than what we're used to. It's back to, we're not seeing them multiple times throughout the day. We're not able to actually inspect the work, right? We're not walking past their office and see that they're actually working. So right now, the expectations got to be a little bit higher right now when they're working from home. So that's kind of additional feedback to that too.
Yeah, you know, and probably, you know, you get what you know, inspect versus expect, right? So putting out those expectations. Austin, Lee asked if he could contact you for further communication. Do you mind just giving your email address one more time orally?
Yeah. Yep, it's austin@sharperprocess.com.
Very good. Well, thank you, Austin. I appreciate your time. I know that you know, you are an expert on this subject, and you know, speak around the country on it. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you sharing. And just again, as a reminder, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to go to the question box and write those there, and then we'll follow up. The next person we have up to speak to you today, and our last presenter, is a part of our President Circle. That is an exclusive group between Think Realty and American Association of Private Lenders. And he is one of the leaders in real estate and in lending on technology. And I'm sure he's going to give us some great tools today to use. And so I want to welcome Sam Kada to the show. Sam, are you with us?
I'm here.
Good. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem at all. I appreciate the opportunity, Eddie, and be happy to talk about this. I came in a little bit from a different environment, and there I actually run a global operation. I had up at one point to 3,400 people working for me remotely. So I know a thing or two about remote operations, what it takes, where everything lies, the good, the bad, or indifferent, and how you actually institutionalize that. The ironic thing throughout my career is when I scaled down to our organization, I actually found a way to operate more efficiently locally, not remotely. And now we find ourselves positioned to go on and reverse the same thing. There's few tools and a few tricks to do though. And those are not necessarily just text. And what you really have to think about remote work is talk about the goals, the processes, more than the tools. And then the tools you can follow for you. So when you're looking into the remote work, and there you need to look at the comprehensive approach, and really you cannot afford not to live without it. Kerry mentioned something about business continuity and contingency plan. And it's probably you're playing catch up if you don't have it. And it really involves a lot of things in there. So what you're going to learn today is what does it take to have a comprehensive work process remotely? How you're going to go, you're going to do, call it checks and balances. Who's going to do what by when? And how does anyone know that they can do what they need to do and in a timely manner and communicate it back? We talk about the tech tools, VPN needs, is it needed or not? Where do I store data? How will my communication sets work? And how do I do a quick transition if I am not ready? And what do I need to do with those as well? And of course, we'll talk a little bit about the process of daily checks. So from a tech perspective, we have a process that's well established in the industry that is talks about agile, talks about your ability to do daily stand-ups. We'll talk about that for a little bit and how you can leverage that to set goals, not necessarily check on tasks. And also, and there what you might be thinking of right now, how can I afford all that structure all of a sudden? And do I need to redo my entire systems? Maybe, I'm not sure, but there are some tweaks and some pieces that you can definitely deploy in a very short manner. And if you need help with that, if you need some advice or some guidance on this, we'll be more than happy to take a call, and I'll see what I can do personally to guide you through it if you need be. And it's who's going to take care of all of these infrastructure questions if you have them. And this is not a time to make a major change. So guess what? You have to make that major change. It already happened. It got imposed on us. So think about the questions that you might have so far. And there I'll be glad to take questions in the middle if you need to, and it comes through. Go ahead and post them, just a reminder. And if you have some specific topics and challenge, we can discuss that also at the end or somewhere in the middle. So let's talk a little bit about the processes, and we talk about the daily stand-ups. And to kind of piggyback on what Austin said, this is really key to your success to a great degree. Who's going to do what by when can translate easily to the daily goals. You don't have to be grandiose in your goals. They could be daily goals, and use these daily touches And in the groups that you have within your teams, and you might have 2 or 3 15, 20-minute meetings a day from a leadership perspective. And your goal would be, A, what are you doing? What do you need help with? Is that going to help you achieve your goal at the end of the day? Daily small success steps create a tangible outcome instead of worrying about the mopping the floors, worrying about my goal today is to get XYZ done. And if my goal today needs some help from somebody else in the team, let's create that collaboration immediately. So that might involve, do I need a VPN to my office? But if you have everything local on PCs and you don't have laptops and you don't have a structure to work remotely, you might need a VPN. But I have an alternative for you to think about that. There's a couple of tools out there. Google is kind of known with Dropbox, a little bit for remote work, but Office 365, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and I'll talk about each one at a time. If you go in and have an Office 365 as a tool, you have your email collaboration, you have all of your data put on OneDrive so you can share and communicate fairly easy. And SharePoint is a great tool. All of your daily communications, all of your HR communications, any updates, you can quickly create a message board and documents to share with everybody, with groups, and be able to communicate with them. So that's where you can post your goals. You post any changes, any alerts. Use tools like Teams and Skype and maybe even Google Hangout for group chats. You need to have that. We all know now about Zoom. Who would have thought that Zoom becomes the household name for a 2-year or 3-year-old or 5-year-old now who are kind of doing remote play dates in that spirit. So all of this needs to be able to give you transparency of your system and all of your communications. So you have your systems in place that you're able to communicate with and see who's doing what by when, and not necessarily for micromanaging and tracking. It's for transparency so people know. There is a small piece of being in an office. You can easily walk around the corner and ask somebody a quick question. Well, since that goes away, maybe we'll put a Skype group or a Teams group that people can talk freely, can discuss between 2-3 people or between the entire team, so you can see what's going on and you feel connected. Overcome the loneliness. You see what everybody is doing if all the communication is happening on Skype or Teams. And being able to see where everything stands also means that you have to have one system that everything works for you. Whether you decide it's your CRM teams, whether it's your loan origination system, whether it's your lead management, whether it's a team structure, use these tools to your advantage. And the reason why I usually talk about Office 365 and Microsoft, because it's truly one comprehensive, one-stop shop that does it all in one place. If you use other tools, now you have to stitch it together. So from a technology perspective, I would suggest the easiest for you. An Office 365 gives you SharePoint, gives you OneDrive, gives you Teams, and gives you even some CRM capabilities. And by the way, you can even post your schedules or your availability online for some of your clients to do bookings with you in a very, very quick manner. And we all know about Zoom. So who's doing what when? Who's doing what by when is always a question. And this is really not a management question. This is typically a team question. They want to know, and how do you know to communicate with them? And what am I going to do? What is being asked of me today or tomorrow? I'm being tactical this week. And can I just see what everybody is doing so I don't duplicate the efforts? So now you use a tool like Teams to communicate with. We have we have a rule in technology. It calls the 4 eyes and 4 hands principle. Yeah. And the idea behind it is, if nobody knows what I am doing, I have a problem if somebody needs to pick up for me and help me out when I get in a jam. I have a problem that if I'm out on vacation, what happens? So with these tools, with the transparency, you don't necessarily need the 4 eyes and 4 hands. You would just simply use your tools where everybody is really saying what they're doing in a non-echelon, very casual way, whether it's on Teams or they post their work on the CRM or doing an update to a file that you can work together with somebody else interactively on OneDrive, and you collaborate and you're actually typing a letter together or updating a spreadsheet together at the same time on Excel. You're able to do that. So how do you assign tasks? Make sure that your LOS, your CRM, whatever that tool in there, to have a clarity of who's doing what by who's doing what by when, is being clear to everybody. Austin talked about communications, so the communications needs to be clear for everyone as well. And how do I follow up and manage ends up being the touch point of saying, how can I help you, versus trying to check on somebody and what are you doing. Once you have the transparency, you have a method to go back after and say, I see that you're thrashing in here, how can I help you? Or reach out to another team members and ask them, go talk to them and see if they can use some help from you. Stand-ups twice a day, I'm a strong believer in that, and that allows you to have communications at the beginning of the day. What am I doing? And at the end of the day, it doesn't even have to be about the task. It could be simply, let's get on Zoom, see each other, kind of vent off, overcome the loneliness for us for a little bit, and end the day on a positive note. And I would suggest that you do Zoom and actually do videos. And if somebody does not have that, I know there's shortages, but Amazon in a couple of days can get you one you can ship to your employees. And of course, detailed standard operating procedures are a must at any given time. So the tech tools, I would say VPN is the least of your worry unless your systems are so old PC based and you need to connect to them. I would say SharePoint for standard operating procedures and general communications, OneDrive, Skype, RingCentral, and Grasshopper could be your other communications. Today, the phone rings at your office. It no longer rings at your office. Jump on Grasshopper, jump on RingCentral, create an account, forward all of the calls through your office to the person's location, or better yet, they can download Grasshopper's or RingCentral's tool so their phone is actually ringing at home at their place. CRM, loan origination systems, exchanges and communications, and a full system becomes important. And finally, Zoom, Teams, and GoToMeetings, and it became apparent, and I'm one of these guys who went in and bought some stock in Zoom. There's no way these guys are going anytime, and I don't care how down the economy is. This is the company that's going to grow. Choose one comprehensive tool set at the end of it and surround it with a sound business continuity practice. Do not try to go in and do, call it piecemeal. This is cheaper and this is less expensive. Get one system that works with each other very well. You can run a CRM in here, and you can run RingCentral, and you can go in and do a Dropbox. And the reality is, you can do Office 365 that comes with OneDrive, that comes in with Skype, comes in with Teams. And if you want a phone number with Teams to set it up, you possibly can do that as well. Thank you for your time. That's it. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take it.
Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate a lot of great information, especially touching all the technology pieces that I'm sure a lot of people are struggling with today. Question here, ask what CRM do you recommend? I mean, maybe you would recommend a custom implementation, but is there one that you would recommend as just a more general, generic CRM that if someone's not already using one, that they could easily begin to implement?
Yes, so it depends. There's no one magic answer to that. If you're in the lending industry, you probably want a CRM with an LOS. But otherwise, for generic CRM, Zoho tends to be one of the best. It's cost effective, it's easy to use, and I would definitely not recommend for you Salesforce. And that's my own biased opinion, because it's really for larger organizations and it's so comprehensive and cumbersome to set up. HubSpot comes in next, but HubSpot also requires a high-end customization. But my recommendation would be absolutely Zoho if that's what you need.
Very good. That's awesome. Sam, thank you so much for joining today. If you don't know, Sam has a company called Liquid Logics, and Sam has some awesome software that he has built for lenders. So depending on which side of the fence you're on, if you're a lender or if you're an investor, you might want to check out Sam. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam. I don't see any more questions. We'll give it just one more minute, but I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, and hopefully I kept it on time.
Yes, you're awesome. You're very good. Well, thank you so much for everyone that tuned in today. I hope it was helpful to you. Feel free to connect with any of the presenters, whether it be Carrie, Austin, or Sam. We appreciate their time today, their expertise. I know that where we are today is a very interesting place in the country. I know there are lots of questions, and there are a lot of people that are working in very different environments than they've ever worked in before. And so we just wanted to provide you a practical help today. For ongoing support, you can go to, if you're a lender, you can go to aaplonline.com/COVID-19, and you can subscribe there to AAPL updates. If you are a Think Realty user, you can go to thinkrealty.com/COVID-19. And we have just put a ton of resources on there for your help and for your perusal. And you can go there. And then for all of the people that are still doing business, whether you're a lender or you're an investor, you can go on there, and there's a marketplace there where you can express through a survey what you might need. So we would love to continue to provide that. And if you don't mind, go to either one of those, either Think Realty or AAPL Online/COVID-19, and sign up, and we will be glad to continue to post information there that'll help you. Thank you so much for today. I appreciate all of you coming on, and I hope that this was helpful to you. Have a great day.